History is full of strange and mind-blowing moments that seem too weird to be real. Let's dive into some of the most bizarre facts from around the world that you probably didn't learn in school. Ancient Egyptian pharaohs were considered living gods, and they took their religious ceremonies very seriously. One of the strangest rituals was the Festival of the Nile, where the pharaoh would publicly masturbate into the river to ensure a good harvest. And it didn't stop there. Men who watched would follow the pharaoh's lead, joining in to bless the waters of the Nile. They believed this would ensure fertility for the land and a bountiful crop. Talk about a hands-on approach to agriculture. One of the weirdest moments in religious history occurred in 897 AD. Pope Stephen VI ordered the body of his predecessor, Pope Pharaohs, to be exhumed and put on trial. Known as the Cadaver Synod, the dead pope's corpse was dressed in papal robes and placed on a throne, while Stephen VI shouted accusations of perjury and heresy at the lifeless body. Not surprisingly, Pharaohs was found guilty, and his corpse was mutilated and thrown into the Tiber River. This macabre event shocked the Catholic Church and is remembered as one of the most bizarre trials in history. In the early 1900s, cars were a rare sight. In fact, the entire state of Ohio had only 2 cars registered at one point. But here's the crazy part. Despite being the only 2 cars in the whole state, they managed to crash into each other. What are the odds? It's a reminder that traffic accidents aren't just a modern-day problem, even when there's literally no traffic to speak of. The streets of California are known for their glamour and sun-soaked vibes, but many of the street names have much spicier origins. During the gold rush, towns were filled with working women, and many of the streets were named after the brothels or the women who worked in them. Next time you're walking down a street in San Francisco or Sacramento, you could be treading on a bit of hidden history that harks back to a very different time. Cats were sacred animals in ancient Egypt, and losing one was a huge deal. When a beloved pet cat passed away, the family members would mourn by shaving off their eyebrows. The act was a sign of respect and grief for their feline companions. The Egyptians even mummified their cats and buried them with their owners to ensure a happy afterlife together. In medieval Europe, animals were sometimes put on trial for crimes. If a pig was found guilty of damaging crops or a goat was accused of causing harm, they could be dragged to court where they'd be tried just like a human. Some animals were even sentenced to death or banished. Imagine having to stand trial for something your pet did. Talk about legal drama. Peter the Great of Russia was known for modernizing his country, and part of his plan was to make Russians look more Western. He decided to impose a beard tax, forcing men to shave their beards or pay a fee to keep them. Those who paid the tax had to carry a token as proof of payment, a metal coin with an image of a nose, mustache, and beard. If you were caught without your token and had a beard, you'd be fined on the spot. When U.S. President Andrew Jackson passed away in 1845, his funeral took a turn for the weird. Jackson's pet parrot, Paul, had to be removed from the service because it wouldn't stop cursing loudly. Apparently, Jackson had taught Paul quite the collection of foul words, and the bird decided to put on a performance at the most inappropriate time. Imagine a parrot ruining a presidential funeral with a string of profanities. Ancient Rome had firefighters, but their help didn't come without strings attached. Marcus Licinius Crassus, one of Rome's wealthiest men, ran a private firefighting brigade. When a fire broke out, his men would rush to the scene, but they wouldn't put out the flames until the property owner agreed to sell their building to Crassus at a rock-bottom price. Only then would the firefighters spring into action. Crassus ended up owning a huge chunk of Rome thanks to this sneaky business model. Imagine dancing uncontrollably for days without stopping. That's exactly what happened in 1518 in Strasbourg, France. Hundreds of people suddenly started dancing non-stop for weeks, many collapsing from exhaustion, and some reportedly even dying of heart attacks and strokes. The cause of this dancing plague remains a mystery, though theories range from mass hysteria to poisoned bread. To this day, no one really knows what triggered this strange dance epidemic. Cleopatra, the last queen of Egypt, was known for her wit and cunning. Legend has it that she once made a bet with Mark Antony that she could spend a fortune on a single meal. When Antony took the bet, Cleopatra dissolved one of the largest pearls in the world in a cup of vinegar and drank it. Pearl dissolved, bet won. Cleopatra's stunt proved her extravagance and cleverness, even in the realm of high-stakes dinner parties. The Persian king Cambyses II took an unusual approach to warfare. When laying siege to an enemy city, he ordered his soldiers to collect and use the bodies of dead soldiers as a bridge to cross over enemy defenses. This gruesome tactic, while effective, showed the lengths to which ancient kings would go to achieve victory, even if it meant desecrating the dead. During World War II, a British officer named Forrest Yo Thomas, also known as the White Rabbit, was captured and tortured by the Nazis. When paraded in front of a crowd for identification, he famously winked at a fellow prisoner, who then lied to the guards about his identity, saving his life. He later escaped and continued to work as a spy, making the White Rabbit one of the most legendary spies in history. From pharaohs blessing the Nile to popes on trial and beards being taxed, history is full of some truly weird and wild moments. These facts prove that truth is stranger than fiction and that our past is as fascinating as it is unbelievable.